Hey guys, and thank you for joining me. Today we'll be talking a little bit about the rise of Archival fashion, or the archives about fashion, and also taking into account how I recently found a reissue of some past pieces from Demeulemeester in this Japanese website. Alright, let's get started. Right, so archival fashion has been on the rise for the last few years. I've seen it pop up in many places, especially you can see it a lot on public figures, on the rappers, everything. So archival fashion has started to rise in popularity for the last few years. For those of you who don't know, archival fashion is when you take pieces, the curation and the collection of past pieces from past seasons, which will not be made again, and they're kind of like a unique piece of, let's say, art, if we can say it like that. We can say it's a piece of art which is unique and which you can wear or also collect. Some of these brands have achieved like a kind of cult following. One big example you all guys know is Raf Simons. Raf Simons has risen in popularity a lot, and all his archive, all his past collections have attained kind of like a cult status in a way. And it's really interesting to see how these pieces, they're very well made, and they're also very cool, I think, to wear. So, and people even recognize. Some of these garments and collections are lost to memory, so this archive fashion has been very positive, since we don't lose those kind of to the public view, because I seem to think that most big fashion houses have a big archive in their house where current artistic directors can take from. So that's pretty important, but sometimes we as the general public don't have access to these. So it's very cool to kind of own a piece of this kind of past for you. I find archive fashion kind of like a select few people kind of try to hold on to this art and hold on to it so it doesn't decay into the past. So it's very interesting. Some examples, as I said, Raf Simons, but also Helmut Lang. I've seen pop up Undercover. All these Japanese brands have a big archive fashion. It's kind of like an economy, right? Everyone's looking for these pieces. The pieces rise in price as they're more desired by more people, and some of these Raf Simons parkas can even go to $25,000, stuff like that, which is pretty crazy because the starting price wasn't that. The reason they rise so much is because a lot of people want them. Why has there been this big popularity, right? Why has archive fashion, especially Raf Simons and others, risen so much the last few years? Well, I think, and this is also a question I pose to you guys, but I think it's maybe there's a big influence of the rappers. A$AP Rocky, of course, is a name that comes to mind when we're thinking about Raf pieces. That video, Raf, the song he made, he was wearing all Raf archive pieces, but also Undercover. We see a lot of this like social media influencers, like fashion influencers, wearing this vintage kind of archive pieces. And well, like the Kanye West, for example, he used to wear a lot of archive pieces and like Raf bombers and stuff, etc. So I find that quite interesting, but maybe you guys can tell me another reason why they have popped up so much. Some brands actually try to reproduce the past collections because they've seen it's so lucrative, and all that money isn't necessarily going to the brands themselves, right? If you think about it, right? Someone bought this piece, I don't know, 10 years ago, right? And then he sells that engraved. I'm talking about the high, like the high selling point, because I've heard that there's some place like Antwerp where you can find these archive pieces for a more reasonable price. But let's say, right, you buy this Raf archive like 20 years ago, and then you sell it for like $25,000. All that money is not going to the original creator. So some brands have been trying to bring it back, like Helmut Lang did a reissue recently where they did the paint your pants, they did the Astro jacket, they did the cowboy t-shirt. So it's it's very interesting how this has become kind of a trend, and I think it's even become very influenced by the hype culture as we see it. The hype culture influences how we like things, how much things are coveted. So maybe sometimes these pieces aren't that cool, but there's a whole hype surrounding them. Oh, it's this thing, it's that thing, and then they rise so much in price. So maybe that's a negative aspect of this archival fashion. Right, so I wanted to talk today about the Demeulemeester Reissue I found. I only found it in one Japanese website. I'll link below, where they have a store in Fukuoka where they sell all those cool brands I like, and I found it in only that one store. And from reading the blog post, I read it translated, so it might be lost a little bit in translation, but it seems many of the pieces from 06, 07 menswear were reissued. Especially the What Remains is Future t-shirt, which from what I read, it represents what Patti Smith handed out at the end of one of the last shows she did at, correct me if I'm wrong, I think it's CBGB's, but if I'm wrong I'll put it here. So Anne herself, she still designed for the brand, she put on display in her women's wear show that t-shirt, and now it's been reissued again, like kind of going back to the archive, bringing it back, making it accessible to people who are buying Anne now. Also a big part of this reissue, and I think a lot of people will like it, and I don't know if it will spread to like the normal retailers, but they're reissuing the 2011 backlace boots. I know a lot of people are hyped on this backlace boots because a lot of people want them, and they're being reissued. So now the point will be, are they the same quality as the old ones? Are they the same design? They changed the design. One big thing people were very mad at the Helmut Lang reissue was that the painter pants, everything, it was a bit off. It wasn't the same thing as the original. The original was much more coveted because it had the original design, and the reissue was a bit like washed away. Like when you wash a t-shirt too many times, you start losing it. So that's kind of the feel. So the big thing is, will this Demeulemeester reissue be the same quality as the original? Here I'll post two pictures side by side of the reissue and the old one to see if you guys can see any differences, but we shall see on foot. Alright, this is a discussion, so if you want to post a little bit of your ideas on the comments, I would love it, so I can talk to you guys, bring me all different views on this whole archive kind of trend. I think it's a trend. Undercover, etc. And what do you think about this Demeulemeester reissue? Do you think it's a positive thing for the brand? Do you think it's a negative thing for the brand? It's killing it. I don't know if Anne herself is responsible for this reissue, since she's not the creative director of that brand right now. But I don't know. In my opinion, it's cool to bring these kind of forgotten things back and kind of let the people now wear these things that are so hard to get. Like, let's just say it's very hard to get those backlace boots. I have one of those kind of boots for the next video. I'll give you a sneak preview. Next video is about some quite old, or not very old, but Demeulemeester boots that I love. So anyways, thank you for joining me, guys. As I said, leave a comment about what you think about this whole archive. Is it good? Is it bad? Anyways, I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts. See you next video.